Hey there! I wanted to make a quick video about something we were talking about today, and it's money with kids. And I wanted to share an insight, a cool thing. You know how kids are super attracted to video games nowadays, but video games can sometimes get a bad rap. Like, it's seen as something that's not, your favorite thing for your kid to be doing, or something you'd really rather have them be doing something else. But parents who are involved with unschooling know that a big part of learning is really all about video games. And right now, the subject, particularly about video games that's beneficial, is learning how to deal with money. Because so many of the most popular games nowadays have some sort of a coin, or within the game the kids have like a little bank account, if you will, or like a store of money that they use to buy things in and out of the game. And there's really value to just learning how that feels, getting down and dirty into how it feels to spend all your money and then have none left, or to save up for that special item that you want, maybe to buy stuff that's really valuable to you, but also to have the experience of buying a bunch of things that you end up never using, and seeing how just getting a little more money wise, even getting ripped off. That's happened to my son before within the game, where he buys cool items. I think it's Fortnite specifically, where he'll buy something cool, he's all proud, and then he'll meet someone within the game who's like, let me see your items, and he'll like dump his items on the floor, and then the person will steal the items or something like that. And it's an interesting, it's emotional for him to go through that, but I don't necessarily see it as bad. I see it as, oh, this is an opportunity for learning, and I'm here to support you however that means through this, whether that's like emotional support or whatever. But it's all really awesome learning. Now, when kids are dealing with money, I know that sometimes I get the feeling like a little bit of cringe, right? Like, oh man, like I know that you might be making a mistake right now. Like, for example, my daughter wanted to buy or add on like every single app that she would come across when she's on the iPad, because kids get bombarded with these little ads about this little app, that little app, and they're always these little simple games or something. And she just wanted to get every single one, and she's always asking me, and I was like, but I really realized that that's where the learning is. Like, for me to stop that, to prevent that, and sort of control that, because that's what the prompts are. Like, when I'm feeling that way, that's what I'm prompted to do. I'm feeling like a little cringy or whatever, and I'm prompted to say no, or to start controlling their behavior or something like that. But as I sink into my peace, I sink into my clarity, take a deep breath, relax, and just see it from a different light, I'm like, oh, this is where the learning is. You're gonna learn so much by being able to spend all of your allowance, or whatever form of money that your kids have, on their video games and just buying Robux or whatever coin it is within the game, because man, you're now like inside your own little world of currency, and you're learning what that all feels like, and that's awesome. In fact, I think my kids are going to be way more money wise than I was as a young adult, simply because they're doing this like every day, learning how to manage their own money within video games. It's really cool. Here's the thing though. A lot of times when my kids are going through these little lessons, I'm like, I will jump and assume that I know what lesson they're learning. Like, oh yeah, you're gonna buy that and you're gonna learn like that you didn't really want to spend that much money, or whatever it is in my head that I'm thinking. And I just want to share my experience with this and note that I'm wrong all the time. And watching my kids go through their experience of money notifies me of how many negative stories I might have surrounding money, because it triggers me, and I start going off inside my own head. I start going off with these like stories about like money shaming, almost like, oh, you don't want to do that, oh, they're not saving, they're just impulse buying, all of these things. And then my kids will prove me wrong, and it'll turn out that's actually not what's happening. And I've noticed that anytime, or a lot of the times I should say, that when I'm trying to teach a lesson, when I'm trying to, oh, A, B, and C happened, therefore I'm going to share my opinion of what the lesson is of that. Let me give an example. So, basically when I try to teach a lesson, a lot of times I'm wrong. Here's an example. My daughter and I went to a water park not too long ago, or like it was like a kids resort. So there was a water park and an arcade, all sorts of stuff. My daughter decided to eat at a different time than everybody else. She didn't want breakfast with everybody. And instead got hungry later when everyone else was already full because they had eaten breakfast. She decided she wanted lunch during the time that everyone was gonna go play in the arcade. Come time later, it turns out she now wants to go play in the arcade when everyone else is going to the water park. And it just seemed like it was not the right time or whatever. And I start running the story in my head like, oh, well, if you would have just eaten with everybody else earlier, then this wouldn't be happening. Now let me share what happened next. Later in the day, there was this perfect opportunity where there was nothing to do. We were actually just waiting for somebody else to finish what they were doing. We had nothing to do, and it was the perfect time for me and my daughter to go to the arcade, and she got that chance to go to the arcade. And once we got there, one of the first games she played, just randomly she hit this little button and won the jackpot on one of the games and got like 1,000 tickets. And it was such a little reminder to me that my negative stories are not, the lesson that I think my kids need to learn or are learning based off of the events that pop up are often incorrect. In this situation, just looking at how everything played out, the lesson was, you're perfect. You're totally fine. Listen to your body. If you don't want to eat then, go ahead, don't eat then. You want to eat lunch now? Awesome, I'm going to honor that. You deserve that sort of thing. And everything's going to work out fine for you. Sometimes we do still accommodate for the group, like we all go to the water park together, that makes sense. But don't worry, because I trust that there's going to be a time where we're going to be able to go to the arcade or whatever. It's all going to work out fine. So I mentioned that story because the same thing might happen when we're dealing with these money stories and we watch our kids going through these lessons, and all of a sudden our money story starts coming up and we're like, oh, this is this and that is that. And I would just, as a framework, instead of always acting that out and maybe speaking your mind, just take a look at it. Take a look, how does it make you feel? So because as our kids go through these experiences, their money signature, their money archetype or story might be totally different than yours. My kids might be more of a saver than I am, or maybe they're more of a spender than I am, and that's just natural to them and that works for them. All archetypes, if you will, are valid and can be honored, and they might work for you. I am not here to tell you that the way that you have learned your relationship with money is or is not perfect for you, as long as you're happy. If you're unhappy, if there's stuff coming up, let's look at that. Let's figure out what's coming up there. But I for sure do not want to paste my conditioning onto you. I would much rather live in the trust of my child's experience and just see how it blossoms for them, see what's true for them. All right, I think that about sums it up. Thank you so much for listening. And moral of the story is, let those kids game.